He was here.
I'll be there on the Saturday.
Or US1, right?
Yep. Oh, no.
I did get it, thank you.
Oh, that's
I got 5 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock, we'll get started. Jody, can you do a roll call, please?
Vice Mayor Young.
Here.
Councilwoman Long. Here. Councilwoman O'Neill.
Here.
Councilman Schoner.
Here.
Mayor Hall.
Here.
Mr. Yarborough.
Present. You're up. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, you're up, you're up. Okay. So the public understands, well, about all the public staff. So you understand Betty and Jackie. The protocol, and has been for some time with our budget, is that each council member spends about an average of 2 hours with us, and we go over the budget individually. We do this about a couple months ago. Finance director puts a presentation together. Questions are fleshed out. If possible, we try to answer them. If not, we get back to you. And any suggestions that we think are meritorious, that we can make the budget more attuned to your interests, we do that. And then, meanwhile, we put a document together based on the latest and greatest that comes in. And what you're going to find when I turn this over to your finance director, Kevin Lewis, is that some things have changed since we had that sit down with each one of you. And of course, the purpose of this meeting is for you to have a public hearing, workshop, well, I'm sorry, a workshop where the public can be in attendance and hear what you already know, and you can get brought up to date with any changes that may be coming through in revenue projections, good or bad, and how we've made an adjustment. I will tell you that Kevin has done a good job when we sit down to try to figure out how to get off that 7.8 mills. It's done without any substantive changes. Ralph did a good job and asked me where the leaks were, and we saved about $35,000 finding out they weren't as significant as we thought they were with the PD. So all your input, none of it falls on deaf ears, you know, and the more you're involved, the more questions you ask, the better I think we are as a staff. And so you're at now 7.75, which means you can at least tell the public you lowered the millage rate. It's not anywhere close to getting to where you want to be with the rollback rate, nor would it be wise to adopt the rollback rate with the constitutional amendments. Probably going to take about 140 right out from under us here the following fiscal year. I can tell you that the utility study will come to you when it's finished. It's not quite ready. From what we understand preliminarily, it's not that much it has to be altered, but we are going to be recommending some changes to our utility rates. The fire fee that we were looking at will also come to you when the first phase of it's complete. Won't be much longer, and you'll be sitting on that ready if you need to implement as an option in the event the property millage changes. Property rate millage could have to change due to the constitutional amendment, and that's the oversight. The meat of it, if it's all right with you, I'll let Kevin get into it. And, you know, Mr. Mayor, how you want to handle this is up to you. I think in the past what you tried to do is ask them to hold their questions to the end so we can kind of muddle through it, make a note, and we'll go around, and I've got something I'd like to pitch to at the end, if you'll help me remember. Thank you, Kevin.
Kevin Lewis, Finance Director. As it's a workshop, I'll try to go quickly so you have plenty of time to discuss on the back end. My focus will be on the things that have changed. The presentation is still the same, but I've added things that have changed or new information to it. I'll go quickly, but if there's an area you need me to stop, please yell and I'll stop and reiterate. The citywide totals have changed a little bit, but not dramatically. And this is just your expense totals by fund, revenue totals, and then the expend by category. Your general description of the fund totals from when we met before haven't really changed much. The citywide expenditures, primarily here, the good news is that health insurance, which we discussed before, is no increase this year, which is a good thing. Has built into it 2% wage adjustment plus the variable merit, again, the same as last year for a 3% average. Future concerns, the homestead exemption ballot initiative, as we discussed, has a potential impact of $140,000. The scheduled debt increase that we've talked about before, that is built into the budget. That 0.4 of a mil is also exists that we're dedicating towards future debt service that will help get that paid off when we have the balloon coming. Amendment 1 is the homestead exemption that we've talked about. The county these are slides that came from a property appraiser presentation of Mayor's Roundtable. The county refers to it as the 525s. The first 25 being exempt from all tax levies, the second 25 taxed. These are value, $25,000 in value on the property. The third exempt from everything except school taxes, the fourth 25 taxed, and the fifth would be similar in the exempt from all taxes except for school levies if you have value significant enough to qualify for it. The problem with Amendment 1 is it's not all it's cracked up to be. It's not a fair, equitable, across-the-board change for all taxpayers. You can see property areas where high property values exist, like Ponce Inlet. 90% of those properties will get the full benefit. Only 2% get no benefit. The opposite end of the extreme is Holly Hill, where only 5% get full benefit, 90% get no benefit. South Daytona is in the middle, but still pretty much heavily weighted towards the no benefit. 19% get benefit, 2/3 of the properties get no benefit. The examples are the same examples that we went through individually, and these are just made-up scenarios, but I think it was 6 out of 10 of the examples didn't qualify for the homestead exemption, additional homestead. So it's all dependent on the value of the property, what Save Our Homes currently exists, and what the property itself is worth. But suffice it to say, it's high-value properties are the only ones that will qualify. Same concerns we talked about before. Personnel, we've started to address some of those personnel needs with this budget. Operating reserves, we should end up the year over our 10% and have a smaller but still contribution towards the operating reserves to restore those. Long term, we need to be looking at a hurricane reserve. Capital needs, you'll hear me refer to it kind of as the avalanche effect. It's always an easy thing to defer, but eventually the avalanche builds up and comes crashing down. And operating expenditures, for years, the city has put pressure on operating expenses for reductions. At some point in time, departments are going to need some additional operating expenses. This is just a calculation of the general fund reserve balances, getting us hopefully towards the pushing 12% by the end of next year. This chart at the top shows the positions that have been added, as we discussed. Nothing new yet in that area. The 0.4 of a mil for revenue options, that's dedicated towards debt service in both the general fund and the CRA. And then the fee reviews, as the manager said, one of the big components of that is water and sewer rate study. Consultant has that data, is working on it. We've gotten preliminary results back from them. We have one issue we're trying to work through with our software company to see if it's something we can implement, but haven't really. We've got trainers coming out in the next week or so, but for now we don't have an answer to that, so it's kind of on hold, but we'll get you the information as soon as we resolve those issues. We're continuing to work hard on collections and liens, the same statistics that we talked about, but putting effort in does have significant payback in that regard. We're looking to expand that effort in the coming year. The fire assessment, the city manager discussed that as well. There is the potential for $600,000 to $700,000 that could be recovered through the fire assessment fee. We're by no means suggesting you need to recover all of that. That is the maximum amount that you could theoretically recover. That represents about $60 to $70 per residential unit. There's lots of decision points along the way which could change those numbers. You could do any kind of combination of millage rate changes and recovering revenues, et cetera, but we'll know more about that as we get the final report and as it's brought to the council should you decide that you want to move forward.
What's the approximate time on that one? When should we get the report?
They're close to being done. The discussion that we had originally was once the election is done, we'd bring it back to you for direction on whether you want to go. The report itself will probably be done in the next month or two, so we can distribute that to you for your...
Fourth quarter of the calendar year, we'd be having that conversation.
Yeah, and then the election's in November, obviously, so timing will be a little bit tight because there are statutory deadlines for notice requirements and that kind of thing. So December, January, you're probably going to have some decisions to make. Millage rate, as the city manager, well, first of all, let's talk about the value increase. We did have a significant bump in values, which is a good thing, helps with the revenues. We're about 10th in the county from top to bottom. And this is just giving you your total values and the increase that we had. Decent bump. This slide is just looking at your rollback rate. As the manager said, we do have the budget balanced at this point at 7.75 mils versus the 8 mils that you saw in January. The rollback rate, we're 5.41% above rollback. This chart compares current year to next year's projections at the 7.8 current versus 7.75. Keep in mind when you hear discussion about property taxes, it's levied at 100%. We are required by state law to budget at least 95. You're never going to collect a lot of it because the majority of a majority of taxpayers will pay early in order to take advantage of discounts. Where we suffer is on new construction. Growth is happening all around us, but we're not seeing much of it here. Unfortunately, that's a compounding effect, so in this particular case, we were next to last in the county. We do have projects on the board that hopefully will come to fruition, one being the condo unit, one being a potential apartment complex, and an ALF. So hopefully those will bring us some value. Repetitive new construction is where it's at. You can see New Smyrna Beach put in over $100 million of new construction this year, mostly condos. Impact on average residential in comparison to last year, we're with the rate coming down a little bit and not the 0.4 of a mil bump, then the increase is less than it would have been last year. Puts us 11th if millage rates proposed hold throughout the county. And then all parcels with us being primarily residential, the impact on commercial isn't as much. And then the next chart is just a comparison of where we fall with proposed millage rates. We have adjusted ours to 7.75. The rest of the agencies are based on their trim notices that probably went out last week or shortly. General fund, there are some slight changes in general fund. We'll talk more in detail about those changes in a little bit, but it primarily was to reflect the comments we received from the council in the one-on-one sessions. And then just your department totals, which you'll see slight changes in those. The list of what's included, I left this list almost identical to what you saw before, and we'll have a follow-up list of what's changed. Obviously, the big ticket item was the millage rate being changed from 7.75, or 7.8 to 7.75. We did, in order to fund that, we did reduce the debt service on the leased vehicles that's proposed to one payment rather than two semi-annual payments in the year. We could further reduce that, but try to mitigate the sticker shock so you don't have all of a sudden a big jump. We put in, at the request of, one of the comments we received was that the PD roof replacement was an important item and needed to get taken care of. So we had put that into the budget. Subsequent to that, we then found out that there's a cost-effective way of getting that fixed this fiscal year. So you'll see later on that we're going to eliminate it back out of the budget. Added $1,000 in travel expenses for a new council person to attend the Institute of Elected Municipal Officials. Added the Piggott Center maintenance, which is wallpaper and the carpeting that goes up the wall. And then part of the way that we funded that also was there's a remaining balance in the capital projects fund from prior years, about $25,000, that will transfer over to general fund and close it out. Other changes that we know are going to happen, the assistant finance director has left the city for a promotion at a sheriff's department, neighboring sheriff's department, became their director there. And so a couple of the things we're looking at is doing a lateral transfer, or excuse me, first of all, filling the assistant finance director internally, doing a lateral transfer of the existing accountant to the existing financial services coordinator, which then we would advertise the accountant internally. If we're able to fill that position internally, there would likely be some savings there, but I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Also, using some of that savings to reclassify the originally proposed part-time HR assistant, downgrading that to a pay grade 23, or from a 23 to a pay grade 16, and making it full-time. So the combination of the benefits being added as well as the decrease. The HR director is also going to assume risk management responsibilities, which would necessitate a pay bump overall for the entire reorg. Potential savings of around $19,000. However, if we end up having to go outside to fill that accountant position, my suggestion to you would be to leave that in the budget so there's flexibility, because I can tell you the market for accounting professionals is tight. And I would be concerned that the minimum that the pay grade is likely not enough in the open market. So my suggestion would be to leave that money alone. If we don't need it, you have my word, we'll pull it back out. But I would hate to tie our hands and then have to come back begging for money when we get there. And then, as I said, we're eliminating roof repairs. There are some reasonably simple repairs that have been identified that can be done that hopefully resolve that issue, buy us at least some time. Again, I would ask you to take that money and either reduce the amount that we need to borrow for the police cars or add it to the fund balance reserves. The capital list remains unchanged other than the police department roof going in and coming back out. And the unfunded list. Yeah.
Let's digest that one a little bit.
Back to capital list?
No, right there. No.
Okay.
Okay, I'm good.
The unfunded list is unchanged other than the police department roof has been removed. And contingency, slight adjustment in contingency, but it's primarily the same items that we talked about, search expenses for city manager and partial advertising type expenses for the police chief, the personal leave payout, cost for the sales tax referendum, implementation of the fire assessment for $25,000. If we need it, which right now we believe we won't need it, the impact fee study. If that's not needed, it'll just go right into reserves. Grants, the previous slide that had the capital, Parks and Rec capital projects, has a slight grant match, and then payroll calculation, overtime revision. And then slightly less than the $50,000 that we started with for the operating contingency in general fund. Redevelopment trust fund, just a minor change. It was a recalculation in the revenues on the state's E-trim system. And otherwise, the values are still the same values. We won't get an adjustment on any changes on that until October. Did have a significant valuation bump. However, we're still down dramatically from the peak year of 2007. What's included has not changed, other than the tax allocation formula correction that I talked about before, which reduced their revenues by approximately $35,000. But that was an increase in general funds revenues. They calculate the formula allocation had a issue with it on the state's E-trim system, which is how we certify millage rates and those kind of things electronically. Transportation fund, no changes at all in the transportation fund. It's as we had presented it. The capital projects fund, this was not in your presentation previously. The only item there is that transfer of the remaining balance back to general fund to close out the fund. It helped finance the changes that were discussed with the council in the one-on-one.
Kevin, would you go back one?
Yeah. Back one more.
Yeah, that one.
Okay, utility service fund. One key item to keep in mind, we don't have the full results of the rate study, so nothing is incorporated in that. I don't presume to know what the council may do with those rate study or how that may get implemented, so nothing is included in the budget for that at this point. Similar
Question, Kevin, on the rate study. I would imagine they're going to assume at some point that the septic to sewer is going to be completed.
Absolutely. At this point, they are not building in those revenues. They take a much more conservative approach. And keep in mind that the majority of your revenues will be offset by expenses. We're buying water and sewer from Daytona. So while there is some profit margin, if you will, it's not, when we have 5,000 customers and we're picking up, some, it's not going to have a dramatic impact, but they are going to be proposing a renewal and replacement reserve so that there's funds there to replace capital as needed, as well as a operating cost increase. The last report that we had from them was something in the potentially 10 to 15%, but there's lots of work still to be done on cleaning some of that up, looking at the septic to sewer, as well as different options for implementation, a staggered approach, or things that staff level we may not necessarily 100% be sold on, or so we will bring some options to the council when we come. The one area I talked about before was the liens and collection processing. So there is a reclass of a part-time billing clerk to full-time that does several things, gives us the ability to do cross-training and billing, and also focus on those liens. There's a lot of data work and cleanup that's got to be done, getting parcel numbers and other things into the database. It's an enormous task. Once some of that stuff starts getting complete, it also gives us the ability down the road to look at putting garbage and stormwater on the tax bill as a non-ad valorem assessment, similar to the fire assessment that we've been talking about. It's pretty common for cities, and the county has garbage on their tax bill, and 6 or 7 of the other cities within the county have those assessments on the tax bill. The only thing that changed in water and sewer fund, I think Councilman Schoner had pointed out that dump truck cost was a little low, so we've bumped that cost up to what the current state contract is for that.
Kevin, will you go back one slide?
Yes, sir.
Second bullet point there on the PO payout, the element of cost. How are you figuring that 16?
How are we?
How are you figuring that number, that 16,580?
We are calculating that based on the current balances that employees have, plus what they may accrue throughout the next year. And
Their delta over their minimum that they have to.
if they qualify for up to a maximum of 100 hours per employee. We don't know exactly which employee where is going to get it,
Yeah,
so we just calculate it, and if you remember, I stick it in
Oh, yeah.
contingency, so it's not floating around in the nebula out there somewhere.
Yeah, I do with that, really. That number just felt a little low, but I figured that's, because you had to keep 325, 350. 280. So you gotta have people who have over that, and yeah.
Right. The capital, other than the change for the dump truck, which is now at the 52,913, we had no changes in the capital list and no changes in the unfunded list. And the internal service fund, which is the fleet fund, there were no changes in those revenues or expenses, and no changes in the capital, which is only the couple unfunded items which have been there a couple of years now. And at some point in time, at least the vehicle diagnostic scanner we're going to have to do as the newer vehicles are coming out. Once they come off of warranty, we don't have scanners current enough to be able to diagnose the current vehicles, but the vehicles that we have are fine. And that's the end of the presentation. I kept pretty good to my word.
Yes, you did.
I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
There they go. They work. I had an opportunity to visit Ken Parker's memo all of you got, and he was still dealing off the original calendar that y'all had approved. I submitted back in the March of having a new manager on board by June. Since that time, Councilwoman Long and I talked about, she's retiring, and one thing sounded good to another, and we talked about moving my schedule up to March. And I said, I don't really have a problem in doing that. I'll be glad to work with the council. That's a pleasure. But Ken didn't pick up on it in his memo. And there was a savings, of course, to the city with that. And since that time, I thought, and he had it laid out originally per schedule. If you remember your advertising schedule, if you remember, it says that don't advertise in November and December. So I reached out to Ken and asked him, is it possible to bring a manager in here by January? And, yeah, I can't see. Now, you can hear me though, can't you, Ray? I can hear you. Okay. Is it possible for, if the council's inclined, to get another manager in here by January or February? Let's just say hypothetically. He said, yes. He said, of course, that's going to entail the city council approving in the first meeting in September the description, salary range, what you're seeking in that manager, and of course the putting the best foot forward on our webpage that they will connect to on the advertisement for the city's outline and what the population is and our amenities, and square acres of parks and that sort of thing, which we incidentally are working on now. But he said it can be done, but what you'll have to do to make it work is we've got to be out there in October, and he recommended 5 agencies to advertise with, and there's a lead time getting our stuff to them. No one really mails in resumes like they used to. Everything seems to be electronic, and including the advertisements. They might get published in a trade magazine, but other than that, you go to the web. So it's got to be mass, and we get it. which made it possible for me to pitch to you budget savings that I think may be your advantage. And I think I've had an opportunity to talk to all of you about this, and that would entail me retiring in January, or whenever you get your manager. And instead of taking that $69,000 payout you're showing up there, matter of fact, it started in January. I'd work it off. It works out to about 3 months. And I think I pointed out the advantage of trying to do that, and that is I'm going to need some kind of title to hold my position as chair. If I'm going to, with the Managers Association, I'm going to continue to facilitate that half-cent sales tax cooperation between the cities and the private sector. I had represented to a number of folks that I wouldn't bail out before the half-cent sales tax took place if it was done in a call election or mail-out election, mailing ballot sometime in the spring. It also would mean I'd be here. Wouldn't necessarily have to, if you got another manager on board, I wouldn't be here every day, but I would be in and out, and I would need some help with the support in the Secretary of Sport in the office there. But it keeps the city from stroking a $69,000 check. During that time, I wouldn't accumulate PL, of course. There's probably going to be some other savings depend on moving it up and what you hire that manager at. So I'm asking you to consider that, and I know the mayor can't get a vote during a workshop, but he certainly can find out if any of you are opposed to it. If none of you are opposed in moving it up under those conditions, we'll go to work and have something on your agenda for the September 11th, I believe it is, meeting on a Monday, where you got to approve your millage, first reading on the budget, and you can go in there and look at, see if we've got something together that reflects your desire for the next manager. The good news behind this, besides some savings to the city, and believe me, I did a lot of thinking over this, because which one of you wouldn't rather have the cash, is that you've got me working with the manager, new manager. You've got me trying to help this half-cent sales tax. You got me around if for some reason your pool of candidates are not what you were thinking they would be in November, where you would be able to go back out, and I'd still be hanging around, if that's your desire, and working off my time, on my money. It's worth, I think, thinking about. And I would caution you not to, I would caution you not to go in there and try to change your millage against it. I'd leave that, whatever savings are there that's been budgeted, to go back into your reserves. And it also gives you some flexibility if you're running into trouble in recruiting and you're not going to be able to do it at the price you thought you were going to be able to do it. So I've got to get a salary range figured out and to you based on what the industry's showing for our area and our size city. And some other stuff, and we got to kick it in gear pretty soon, because I suspect most of these publications want to have that information, or organizations that's going to be doing the advertising want that information in September early, or October. Something else to keep in mind is that means you hopefully will be doing your interview and be pretty much done before Thanksgiving. Any questions?
Time-wise, I mean, it's, I don't see an issue with the time element.
Worst case scenario is we go back and do a March deadline, you know. And then if for some reason that doesn't work, we're back to June, and then we'll just sit down, you take me month to month. But I think it's in the best interest of this city. It allows me some flexibility. I found myself spending 20% of my time, it seemed like, on that blooming election anyway, before the county ended up canceling the referendum. And I just have represented to some people that I don't want to disappoint, that I wouldn't bail. And I need some kind of title so the managers don't leave me in there as chair if I can during this period. All works according to Hull. You'll have your new manager. My time's run out by the end of March. An election's held the first week of April. There's a lot of moving parts between now and then, guys, ladies.
Guess you and I would share the same office, huh?
Oh, what out of my car?
There's
Yeah, we have to do the same with you.
Same office I have.
We'll reserve that one or that one.
Yeah, exactly.
But Joe, give me a scenario. How much time do you think you'll be here? Kind of as needed and?
Well, I suspect it'll become less and less at first and more later. This campaign is going to have to kick off in January, hard. If we got, March, you should have it done by March, mid-March. So there's a lot of moving parts, and all the cities got to have theirs together, and all of it's got to be somehow centralized with the private sector to where it meshes, and the private sector doesn't have a campaign it's running telling people how to vote. The city's over here with something screwy. It's all got to be organized. To answer your question, I'd say I'd be here more at first with the new manager. I would hope you'd want me to be doing that and taking him to lunch where the introductions are necessary and orienting that person if they're outside the county or they're outside the state particularly. You go through a statutory disorientation that takes a while. This state's different.
So you're saying the title, you need a title to satisfy?
The professional organization, we have some bylaws that were adopted 25 years ago and nobody pays attention to, but it sort of says you have to be in a manager position, city manager position. And I'm just looking at something that when I meet with them later this month, if that's your decision, I can say, look, folks, I'm going to be around through the election. I'm going to be under my own salary during the election. The council has given me this title. I'm not leaving you. Can you keep me here as chair until we get through this half-cent sales tax? And it doesn't interrupt your bylaws. You can digest it. And I believe they're going to be okay with that. But I need to get that clarified now.
Are you thinking something like assistant manager and?
No, a city manager emeritus, city manager special projects. I don't care. Give me a city manager title to it. I'm paying myself.
My thought, I threw out the emeritus title. Yes, tends to be a faculty thing and a higher ed thing, but it's a title that doesn't really give any power, but it gives status of prestige. It's president emeritus. You go out to represent the university. You go do things. You shake the hands and stuff like that, but you don't have no signing authority. You don't have any of that kind of stuff. So.
And when does that take effect? January?
That's what I was throwing at, something like that versus a special project.
I'm under still full salary. I'm just paying myself.
But that would take effect the same day the new manager comes on board.
Yeah, I'm not going to usurp the person's authority.
Right, I understand that. I'm just thinking it through, and, I don't want.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, it's kind of an awkward deal, but I have to pitch something to them. They're a tough bunch. They haven't figured it out yet.
I think I had suggested emeritus also. Like you said, it has the prestige. And by golly, let's face it, Joe is the longest-serving city manager in the state of Florida right now, right? I think emeritus would be an apt title.
I've never had a problem with the title.
I don't need
It's
it.
the first.
I like retired. But if I'm going to carry
It works for a while.
I know. But you're still sort of.
You're always cheaper.
I don't hear any objection, Mr. Mayor. I'll prepare that for the and I'll have a better feel with the managers this month. I'll prepare it for your September agenda, and staff's here to hear that. So Jane, Trudy, you and me got a little work to do, and I think Ken's going to be around. But, you know, the thing I think that is nice about it, y'all, is there's no urgency. If things just don't work out, your pool isn't right, you felt like for some reason the salary was up, whatever, it gives you the leeway to hit it again and still save money.
No, I think it's a good thing.
Okay.
I think the time frame is doable. I think, last time you applied for a city manager job, Jim, you probably were still looking at magazines and waiting for them to come in the mail. It'll be all done online. It'll be technology.
Onion paper back then.
Yeah, wait for the pony to come and deliver it to the thing. No, so this stuff will happen, I think,
Yeah.
if this isn't different than what I do for a living, stuff happens quickly. People apply, people see it.
Lightning speed anymore. I mean,
I understand.
Word of mouth, email here, link there,
Just puts a little bit more burden on y'all. There's a lot of work goes into it.
that's fine.
Oh, good. Okay, I know what our marching orders are, and I'll see what I can get together. But gives us, like I said, some flexibility. You know, we decided not to change the budget yet on that. You're gonna need that in case, I don't know. But it also allow you, if things work out like it should allow you to kick in that full-time police chief setting. Okay. And I'm sure Ken told you I can't be involved in y'all's decision-making, so keep that in mind. Good enough. Anything else, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, I'm good. Rest of you?
No, I said anything else on the budget?
No, little questions I'll ask. I'll get with Kevin or something. I don't have anything to tie up the rest of it. Anybody else?
No, okay.
But where's, the only thing I was gonna throw out there on slide 11, I looked in the League of Cities, they should do that for the whole League of Cities, how they break that up, how many people in Florida probably aren't gonna take advantage of this benefit.
Well,
That's an eye-opening.
we're
We'll talk
gonna-
about that at our sessions.
If I may, we're going to, you're talking about the homestead exemption. We're going to use your newsletter, if it's all right with you, to pitch this exactly on who's benefiting in our city. We can't tell you not to vote for it, but we certainly can tell you don't get your hopes up for being a beneficiary. And y'all got a command of it. You come
Well,
into people.
The League of Cities toolbox, if you look at it, they have some good stuff, but it's not to that level. They also, I'll be interested to see when we go down there this week, trying to promote cities to do resolutions. I don't know how much they'll make a push for us to want to have to pass a resolution.
One thing to add, if I might, is if you recall, the last time there was a change in the homestead exemption, what many governments throughout the state did was offset the millage rate to recover those revenues. So it could in fact work double jeopardy, if you will, that I'm voting for a tax increase, but my property value doesn't qualify, and there's an increase in the tax millage, so I got a tax increase when I voted for a tax decrease. Thank you very much.
A sample resolution, the third bullet, whereas Amendment 1 is expected to cost $644.7 million per year, resulting in either service reductions or tax hikes. And then go through your list, because I'm just trying to share that out.
And I just want to thank Kevin for getting it down. Even though it's a .25 reduction, it just saves the residents a little bit of money, and it just sounds better. So thank you for finding those couple of cents in there, yeah.
The special guest that came in, for those of you that haven't had the pleasure of meeting, is our new principal at South Daytona Elementary. Sir, if you would introduce yourself to in your group there. I recognize the two smaller ones, and obviously you're right.
Come on up.
Come on up, sir. This is just a budget workshop that we're having right now. So.
Your timing's perfect.
And as you can see, the audience is loaded, so they all work here.
It's still an honor to be here.
Yeah.
You guys, to be before you. I was really excited just to be appointed the new principal of South Daytona Elementary for this school year. And what's really important to me is that we partner together. And so with that, we have produced a video yesterday that's out on Facebook, on our Facebook page. I hope you guys can check it out. We really are encouraging everyone to get there. We're starting up our mentoring program. It's going to be really strong with a lot of people in the community. Mayor, thank you so much for you and the police chief, fire chief, your child, and
Won't be long, you'll know them all, but you need it for the record, enter your name and address.
Sorry. My name is Kevin Flassig, and my address is 3790 Pioneer Trail, New Smyrna Beach, 32168.
Thanks, Kevin. Who's that here?
I have Melissa Marple. She's a principal intern at South Daytona Elementary. She began last year in October. She presented, and next to her is my beautiful wife, Tess, and my child, or children, Madison. Hi. And Kevin Jr. Hello. So they came here to support me because they know how important this is to me. It may be a small thing for you guys, but
Not
to
at
me,
all, Kevin. Not
it's
at all,
huge.
Kevin.
It's huge.
I think you saw our dedication yesterday, and that was just the start.
Yeah.
For the amount of support that we have received in such a short amount of time from the mayor and the city officials and the police and the fire and, you know, Jeannie showing up Sunday nights and blowing up the balloon arches and everything, it could be overwhelming if we weren't so busy with so much to do. If we would have stopped and thought about it, it's really impressive. So I want to just
Well, the
commend
video is
South-
great. We shared it with everybody. I'm sure everybody thought it was
We
great.
weren't going to put it up again, everybody's seen it.
That's okay. I've watched it so
Well, thanks for producing it.
It really wasn't me. It's,
Who did it?
I really,
There were some volunteers that were there.
I'm sorry, I missed, I'm Joe Yarborough, the city manager, and I had our officer swear in that morning, I got sideways. Y'all met long before I swore him in, I could have done it.
We were there a tad bit earlier than
Yeah,
that.
that's all right.
but they were, it was amazing just having the people just show up and I haven't really done much. It's really just allowing people to do what their gifts and talents are. I'm just getting out of their way and providing opportunities, and that's what's happening. So I'm not taking credit. It's people like Mayor Hall wanting to step up, Jeannie wanting to step up,
You got a good chief here, a good department.
Yeah, the captain, the police, the firemen showing up. The students felt like celebrities.
Can you imagine what that fireman had to have done to be in his full gear in that heat? He really messed up.
He lost a bet, but he got a lot of smiles for
Yeah,
it.
he did.
It was worth it. And, just having the support of, my family, which I couldn't do everything. I spent a lot of hours there, you guys can imagine, and I couldn't have done that without their support. And have my little ones there. I'm so proud to have my little ones with me in South Daytona. And I must say that at one of the faculty meetings we had, I shared that I told them what school I was zoned for and told them, but I chose to bring our kids to South Daytona and got a round of applause.
Well, that speaks volumes.
Yes, it does.
So that was really great. I want to know that they are all into it, thinking, you know what, we got this. And
Plus, you've got 4 more eyes.
yeah, I do. They do. I got some reporters. They don't even know. They're like, Dad, I love school today. Like, great. I didn't talk to that person. That's amazing. So,
Before you leave, Kevin, I'll give you my business card.
fantastic.
We're just blocks away. And I'm hoping is Les here, have you met? That's the deputy manager there.
Not him yet.
And you'll know, I think Greg's the rec director. And
I know Greg.
yeah, we're just one big family, kind of tight-knit, and we really care about that school.
Well, hopefully you guys will be, at the end of the year, it's going to be something you can say, man, we got the greatest school in Florida.
And then we just got to
Well, we know we have to go to school. We just want to let you make it excel.
Oh, we got it.
Then we got to go to the board, make sure they don't transfer.
That's it.
That's right.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to be there. I was told 3 to 5 year plan at minimum.
Right.
So that's good to know.
They give you a chance.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for being here.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
And I didn't recognize Chief Monahan right away, but
If nobody else has anything, Ralph?
I just want to reiterate that the quality of that video was amazing. I mean, it really was.
that was Kyle Carbajal, who is the husband of Anna Carbajal, a 4th grade teacher at our school.
Great.
And she just offered him up. I just gave him a few things that I was looking for. He went far beyond what I ever imagined. Far beyond. So, Thank you for having me.
We'll adjourn the budget meeting and start back up at 6.
Oh, they have a video that's... Hey, Jim Cameron. Doug's grandson. How are you?
Good, this is unique. You guys can have to make some tough decisions.
Hello, everybody.
I'm here in Volusia County altogether. That may be just Volusia.
We just covered all of that.
We're going to we have a coming down from Cameron Chambers in Utah. And then I was going to say, we did polling.
Tess, nice to meet you.
Hello, sir.
Kevin, this is Bill Mayor.
They did.
I saw you yesterday.
This is Madison.
She's in 4th grade.
You need to work on the media.
Okay,
A lot of renters, a lot of people that rent apartments. This is my Holly Hill on the street.
That's Madison. That's
90% of the homes in Holly Hill are not
That's right. Madison is a tad bit taller.
People aren't going to see it that way. They're going to say, oh, I'm going to save another $25,000. Yes, that's all they care about. They have no idea what they're voting on. Sure.
The village is going to make up for it.
Yeah, exactly.
We just talked about this. We just talked about this. Chamber committee.
Hello, my name is Kevin. Everything is alive.
First responders.
My pleasure, thank you.
80% of the people support
Stop.
then, there's university trustees that bring a two-thirds majority to raise college fees and really hits community colleges and universities against community colleges. And they're saying, I don't know if we're going to like this one. I mean, I think because the community, you know what else is going to do to community colleges? Yeah, we come out and oppose this. We oppose it. And then you're going to come out and oppose survivor benefits for first responders that died in the line of duty. I mean, that is going to be just... and that's the thing, and we're going to talk about this, Nancy, this thing, is that some of our committee members, they said it's the way that they packed it together, and y'all, I don't know, y'all might remember some of these ones, but I remember since the 80s, they used to have like these legal scholars and these constitutional attorneys, people that really know this stuff. Back in Supreme Court justices, or this time they got a bunch of folks on there, and I've got a mission, I've got my little thing, to get up there. We got can we, well, we'll just back them into 8. No, I tell you, one of the members, deadlines.
That sounds pretty good, I guess. My question is, are they going to charge for the social welfare drinks? Or is it included? $15 for chamber members. Are we a member? Yes, we're chamber members, aren't we? We're chamber members. Yes, we're chamber members. Not Daytona, or South Daytona. Well, we're for it.
And then, like I said, Debbie's thinking, we've got summaries of all 13 amendments. All 13 amendments. Kind of a short synopsis on those. So. Are we technically my book, you are, come on. Don't let me come and heckle your meetings.
Oh, okay. All right, very good. We're not
No, I mean, so seriously, I mean, if anybody, yeah, just call me if anybody says.
So we RSVP 24 hours ahead of time.
Yeah, just call me and let me know.
What are some of the speakers?
I'm ready to, I've just pulled some community speakers. But this is the main one I'm going to have us go through it. This is Chris Emmanuel, Florida Chamber, and here's the some. But he's, I really should have put more time into this. Because I thought, well, I mean, people will stay around. I mean, for 2.5 hours. They'll stick around for 90 minutes. You know this is.
Well, we'll stick around for
Really?
I'll try to be there though, and then social hour and follow. That should keep some people there.
Well, and I have to do that, so.
Free wine?
And I have, yeah.
All right.
Well, let me put it this way. I give you one ticket.
Okay.
Because I don't want to put you on the road.
Okay.
But seriously, that, yeah, some of these ones, though, I mean, it's just that they are so, nothing is as it appears. But I really say again, I think that, yeah, we can handle it. Let's just back 20 hour minutes.
That's what they do, and then they work with the wording and.
Some of these you can see the fingerprints by some of the folks. I mean, Richard Gordon, I think it's number 12. Something over there, that 6-year lobbying ban. You can't, you know, if you left office, you could not generalize it. I don't think you could approach a legislator right now. Or come back here in 6 years. I don't know if it's on colleagues and something. And that's what we want to get more of. But we are going to have, and that's another thing, we are going to have, if time allows, I want to have this about 10 or 12 minutes. Anybody wants to get up on any of the 13 amendments, you got 60 seconds. And then we're going to do a app where you vote on the phone and it'll show the audience results on the screen. How people feel about it. Pulling about 5 or 6 of these.
That should be interesting.
Y'all let me know. All right. Appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Have any interest? One is hired I had. This guy.
Jim, are you going down to Hollywood Wednesday? What's that? Are you going down to Hollywood Wednesday?
Yeah. Well, you mean for,
Florida League of Cities?
No. But I'm heading down there. No, I thought you meant Friday. We're taking a train down there Friday. I'm gonna stay in touch with you guys on that. I thought you meant Friday. We're taking a small group down there to go right on that. One super quiet, one super quiet. Taking it to Miami and come back. If they take it to Jacksonville, we won't stop here.
Absolutely.
We won't talk about Ray Drive. No, now. Even if it's 5 years from now, we won't stop.
That's one of my favorite movies.
It is. It's a great one. Yeah. There's some great lines. What's up, man? All right. According to my synchronized phone here, it's at least 6:01. So we'll call the regular meeting to the South Daytona City Council, Tuesday, August the 14th, 2018, to order. Debbie, if you will give us, we've already done the roll call, so we can skip that, right?
Yeah.
We need to do another roll call?
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll do another roll call. Deb, please.
Vice Mayor Young.
Here.
Councilwoman Long. Here. Councilwoman O'Neill. Here. Councilman Shoner.
Here.
Mayor Hall.
Here.
Mr. Simpson.
Here.
Mr. Yarborough.
Here.
Everyone, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation. Mr. Yarborough, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask that you continue to bless this community. We ask, dear Heavenly Father, you give us forgiveness, and we ask, dear Heavenly Father, that you help us love our neighbor. Please be with these elected officials this evening, God, and fill their hearts and minds with the reflection of you as they deliberate toward the correct decisions for this community. It's in your name we come.
Amen. I need a motion for the approval of the minutes, please.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Record point on the agenda is citizens to be heard. Comments on any issue or agenda item. If anybody in the audience would like to speak on anything on their mind, anything on the agenda, anything in the world, anything that they want to talk about. Short of not winning the lottery, please come up and this is your time. If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
My name's Alan DeVincentis, 143 Reef Road, just bought the house, live on the Brentwood Canal, and we're all in it, we're on it. None of us have boats that will plow through mud. It's full to the top pretty much. When tide's low, there's very little water in it, and we're wondering what we got to do about getting it dredged. It's all runoff from the upper lands right here. It's all running right down, and there's the only canal that has the stormwater runoff going right into it. There's a weir right there that's full right to the top, and then to add insult to injury, the last hurricane at least put a sandbar at the mouth of the canal, so now the whole canal, that's the weir now, so all the mud that's coming down just sits in the canal. And we're wondering what we got to do to get it dredged.
Okay, I assume you guys are his backup.
My neighbors, we all share
Your name?
canal.
My name's Mike Myers. I live at 151 Reef Road.
And you, sir?
I'm Albert Campbell, and I live on 141 Reef Road.
And you, sir?
Johnson, 142 Bellwood Avenue.
I'm going to have to defer your question to Mr. Yarborough if
I've not got good news, gentlemen. Nor does any city in the state of Florida that has canals that are not the city's canals. but the city didn't put them in. Last time we tried to dredge a canal, everybody had to sign a release. Some of the property owners didn't want to sign it. Some of the seawalls naturally caved in. And the studies that we have, and I'll try to get you one. Who is the senior I get to study to? You'll be good spokesperson. Okay, Alan, I'll get something to you. Les, help me remember. We had a study, an engineering study done on the canal where a bunch of the property owners were represented, similar to you. And the goal of that study was to tell us where the silt came from. The conclusion from the engineers, it oscillated as much as anything. The other canals are filling, maybe not to the level of Bellwood. We put in a basin down there that would clean out 2 or 3, how often, Les, real quick? 4 or 5 times a year? We try to keep that basin. Now, this is a DOT canal, outfall down there, okay? We might have a couple of places, but it's put in for US 1. It's that, and we tried to put up a weir so we could get that silt out before it got into your canal. There's several options available to you. One is to put together a special assessment. You tax yourself a little more. We orchestrate it, and the city will have the option then of whether to pay for it and then tax you a little more to get it clean. Along with that comes a huge liability to the city, which we're not going to assume because the people that don't live on the canal would be assuming it. So you have to sign a release, there has to be a special taxing district set up, and it pays for the maintenance of that canal. The other option is for y'all to get together and do it yourself. Now, I've been told, and Ralph, you used to live down there, so tell me what I'm saying wrong. You get a good high tide, you get you a boat in there with any props, catch it going out, you can move a lot of it out into the river where probably a substantial amount of it probably came from. I'm not saying, some of it wasn't drainage. I'm not saying that at all. I'm simply saying what has worked where people have had this problem in the past. I'm not telling you that necessarily is something you should or shouldn't permit. I'm just telling you what I'm told other managers in the state have told me how residents have corrected the problem. You understand?
Absolutely.
So let me get you a copy of the study that was done years ago so you can at least see what the engineers told this body, and it was a different body back then. Ralph, I don't think you were even up here then, were you?
Not up here, I was actually working there.
What have I left out?
Pretty much all that is as it was. The property owners had to sign an agreement that that was a one-time operation, and understanding that weir would be put in to make that sedimentation trap, so hopefully everything settles out there before it gets into the canal. That was the theory. That's the way it occurred. Everybody, like Joe said, signed off on a release for seawall damage, and we wouldn't get any closer than 15 feet. If it was any closer than 15 feet, you had to sign a release, and I think everybody signed it. But a lot of those canals eventually, their seawalls did collapse eventually, hurricanes and so forth after that. But there's a couple ways you could get together. There's a barge outfit. I can try to remember the name of it. They can come in there with a barge and do it by clamshell. And we're loaded on, loaded on the barge and haul it off and truck it away from a ramp location or whatever to open up your mouth of the canal. That's first I've heard that there was a bar building up at the entrance.
Well, average tide is about 1.5 feet deep, 2 feet, and you go out there, it just goes right up.
Wow, that did used to be the case.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Did that come
out
after,
and walk.
Alan, excuse me for interrupting, but did that come after the last hurricane or the hurricane before? Did it show up then? I'm trying to figure out.
It's been slowly showing up, but the hurricanes is really, and these torrential rains that we get, seems like brings it in. some too.
Well, and I'm not trying to pass the buck, but Ralph, it could be a project going on upstream that with some turbidity that finally found a place to rest. It could be a development. It's just strange and picked on Bellwood, but I understand all the canals at different times are suffering right now. Those were built, what, in the 50s?
My house was built in '59.
Yeah.
Who does that belong to?
It's, I think it's public land, isn't it, Ralph?
That's the Corps.
If it's navigable waters, it's owned by the state of Florida.
Yeah.
It's owned by the state.
So the Urban
So we probably need to move that direction if we want to get somebody to do something.
What I do is I get together and get me somebody that's got a barge to clean it.
If y'all have surveys, you can look to see on your survey where your property line goes. If it could go to the middle
Right.
of the canal, in which case that means it would be your land, your canal. But if it's not, it's considered sovereign submerged land, which is owned, it would be owned by the state of Florida. And if you went to go get a dock on your canal, to build a dock out into the canal, just like if you want to build a dock out on the river, you have to get a submerged land lease from the state of Florida, because they own the land.
Right, I did that. I had to get.
You had to get a submerged land lease?
Yeah, and I had to go to the county and get something. I don't think I went to the state. Unless the guy that did it did. I don't know.
Well, we have to issue the permit, but you have to come in with the permit already. I mean, your city has to issue because it's a structure in the city.
We issue the construction, but if it's state land, then you don't have a right to construct on it, and you have to get us, for all the docks up and down the intercoastal, they get what's called a sovereign submerged land lease. And that's issued by the state of Florida, the Board of Trustees and Internal Improvement Trust Fund. They're the body that controls state lands. So it'd probably be DEP, Army Corps that would be involved in a dredging project, but
I know some people that do the bar. I don't know, hydraulic repair company here in town, well, in Daytona, but I know, I've worked on that kind of thing, so. But so would they need to get that permitted? I guess I'll ask them that. No, they would probably know that.
Yeah.
Well, the one time we did it, it was a maintenance permit to take it down to the original depth, and it was pretty easy to get.
Would your report say the original depth of the canal?
I believe it does. Les, if you excuse me I hate turning to somebody in the audience like that. It's Les Gillis for the record. You familiar with the report?
I am.
All right. We'll get it to you. Take a look at it. Fair enough?
Yes, sir.
That works consideration.
Yes, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to get the contact information, Les? Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience? Les will get with you if you don't mind, Al. I'll meet you outside there. Mr. Cameron?
Thank you, Mayor.
Good evening. I'm Jim Cameron, Senior Vice President, Government Relations, Daytona Regional Chamber. And you have, Deb, thank you for giving these out. And I mean, she's giving you a flyer for a program that we're doing on Thursday afternoon. And this is going to be regarding the 13 constitutional amendments that are going to be voted on November the 6th ballot. And so if anybody's interested, or if y'all would like to have somebody, just please have them call me directly. And then also, thank you, Deb, she made copies of this little thing that we're going to be giving out also Thursday. And it's something I've been working on, kind of spare time. It's kind of a synopsis, pro and con. We try to both show both sides of each of the 13 amendments. And we also included, like I say, a Florida Chamber poll that they took of all the voters throughout the state of Florida, Joe and Mary voted, so to speak. And then we took a survey on several of these, so our people are a little bit more business-minded, so you're going to see some differences between the voter poll and our business survey. But so we're going to be discussing these. We've got a gentleman, Chris Emanuel from Florida Chamber out of Tallahassee. He's going to be discussing these. We're going to be having some counterpoints on some of these that affect the business community. And then if we got time, and I'm trying to cram this in a short amount of time, and then we're going to have some audience comments on some of these amendments. Then we're going to do voter polls, audience polls, see how the audience feels on several of these amendments as well.
Mr. Mayor, Jim, is the chamber taking any position on any of these?
We just met about an hour ago, our legislative committee, and we'll come out with our positions a week from Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have our
I hope you're
recommendations.
sensitive to what?
Pardon me?
Well, I hope you weren't here listening to did you hear the presentation that the property appraiser afforded the roundtable of the mayors some time ago?
That, and then he also, Larry Bartlett.
Yeah.
He also spoke at the V-Card.
Okay, so you know the impact.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
And he's speaking of this thing as well, probably that same presentation on Amendment 1.
Okay, thank you.
And so we're wanting to get everybody as informed as possible on these things.
Well, I can tell you, it's uniform among the cities. No city is supporting it for obvious reasons. It's a huge hole, at least the one on the homestead. I forgot what number that was.
That's number, Amendment 1.
Okay, I could have remembered that.
That's, well, between us here in the room. No, that's what our committee is going to be recommended to our board. So we're going to be recommending the same thing to our board.
That's a good deal. Thanks, Kev.
Okay.
Again, a lot of us can't go because we're not going to be here, unfortunately.
I'm gonna have an empty chair there. And remember, no problem at all, though. But we'll be getting additional information out. And I'm gonna say this, we're gonna be having people on both sides of these amendments at our Hobnob event on October the 9th, that afternoon at the Ocean Center. We'll be having additional information out on these amendments that evening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on anything? Bring it back to council, city manager's report.
Few items, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. If there are no objections, would like to move the October 9th meeting to October the 23rd to accommodate a council member that's going to be out of town. I think most of you I polled, you checked your calendars, you said that'll work, but I need a collective agreement.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah.
Move the October meeting to the 29th
From the 9th to the 23rd?
to the 23rd. There we go.
Second.
Got a motion and a second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Cool beans. Your next scheduled meeting is Monday, September the 10th. Really need to be here. You've got to vote on your tax rate, and you've got to approve on first reading your budget, and there'll be a bunch of other stuff on the agenda. Be sure you got that down. And some good news. They start paving in the morning. Magnolia should be done by the end of the week, including Teague, that project. Satan is behind us. It's been a bugger with all this rain, and Celeste did a good job, after wading in water, trying to get some work done in a half a day. That's all I've got to report, Mr. Mayor.
City attorney's report.
No comments.
We have no old business. So under new business, we have consideration of declaring 27 unclaimed bicycles surplus and authorizing their donation to the Oasis Church.
Mr. Mayor, this is coming from the police department. They found somebody that refurbishes them, a nonprofit that I suspect gives them away. We need to get some room, and we please get them declared as surplus, and let's get them transported.
I need a motion.
To approve.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Item B, consideration of declaring city-owned property as surplus and authorizing its proper disposal. Mr. Yarborough.
We're actually getting rid of some stuff at the Public Works Yard. If you haven't been by there in a while, you can see what we're getting rid of now. Thank you, Les. You have to understand what it's like after a hurricane. Everything it's pushed back. And that yard had again gotten cluttered and making every effort to try to straighten it up. And when you start weed eating, you start finding things you don't need. We'd like to be able to take these down there and at the auction, but you got to declare them surplus first. I think some of them even predate you, Bill.
Really?
Well, no, maybe
No, I
not.
don't think so. Once they were from the 70s, then. Anyway. Need a motion, please?
Move to approve. Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I like the fact that on Sparkle Days, they even put a car out there, right? We still, you can donate anything on Sparkle Days, right?
You know?
Put a car out there.
You got a lawnmower.
And a car.
And a car.
And a car. Yeah.
97 aluminum.
Incidentally, the compound looks a lot better down there.
Yes, it does.
Took a ride through there the other day.
Actually found room for my Jeep in the search trailer the other day.
How many dump trucks was it? 8? 8 loads? 16 loads.
And I get accused of being a hoarder. Wow.
14 and so on.
All right, item C, consideration of appointing council member to serve on the River to Sea TPO.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, due to Nancy Long's departure, we've got a couple vacancies, this one and the next one, that she did a great job in representing us. When she was absent, or I've stood in every time, TPO is very important. If you're not there to hold your own, somebody will grab your project, move it down, and move theirs up. So even if you're not in a offensive position there, which we hope you are, you got to be in a defensive position. So you really need to be in attendance at these. The staff has a representation on several of the committees. They will have to work hand in hand with the representative. I know, Ralph, you said you'd serve. I'm not pushing Ralph, but I did petition him to consider it due to his activity in Nancy's absence. Takes a motion and a second, Mr. Mayor.
Make a motion to appoint Councilman Schoner to the TPO representative for the city of South Daytona.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Ralph.
Glad to do it. Thank you.
I didn't want to have any discussion back out, so.
Guess how quickly we made that.
Probably would have been pointless.
I saw that with a homeless shelter meeting here not too long ago. See, I get it.
You were fairly new there, weren't you, Mayor?
Yeah. Week one.
You learned quick.
Oh, I believe we had a vote on it.
We did.
Yeah, we did.
Yep, we had a motion, a second, and we...
Unanimous.
Oh, it was definitely.
I was going to record it unanimous, but I missed the vote. That had done calm. Go ahead.
First by me, second by...
I got the motions. I just didn't get the actual vote. I forget.
All right, so item D is consideration of appointing a representative to the Oversight Committee for Public School Planning.
Okay. What happened, if I may, when the half-cent, best I can figure, when the half-cent sales tax was pushed by the public school board some years ago, one of the things they wanted was an oversight committee to make sure the money for capital improvements that were identified for the half-cent sales tax were genuinely spent as represented. This group meets once a year, either on the first of the year, and they look at what they represented to be spent on. They look at see if the half-cent has been spent in accordance with what was represented to the public. I do have a volunteer, Mr. Mayor, unless somebody else wants to volunteer, and that would be Lisa O'Neill. I'm trying to make it easy for everybody.
Make a motion to approve Councilwoman O'Neill as our representative on the Public School Oversight Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did you get that, Joe?
Thank you. Leave me alone.
We'll get you
You
trained.
ain't got many more meetings to kick me around.
Item E, consideration of approving an amendment. Is that the right thing? Seems to me we're skipping a few things. An amendment to extend the Volusia County Fire Suppression Agreement through September the 30th, 2019.
For about 10 years, back when Ms. Codo was county manager, not Cindy Codo, I'm trying to think, at least 10 years now, heck, it's probably 20 years ago, city entered into an agreement with the county to service this unincorporated area out there on the Costa Village, off of Big Tree. It's a county enclave, unfortunately, the utilities for Port Orange. It had been running on 3 years, sometimes 5 years. It's down to, it expires, our contract to service that unincorporated area where the county pays the city. Expires at the end of this fiscal year for the city, which is September the 30th. Tried to get a multiple year contract out of the county, and I tried to get a CPI out of the county. In meeting with the acting county manager, he finally leveled with me, said, Joe, we're not doing any multi-year contracts till we see how this homestead vote comes out, constitutional amendment. It's got a huge fiscal impact on us, and it will hit the fire fees that we've got out there that we pay you out of. And we've asked to only go 1 year on it, and we split the difference on a CPI for 1%. So it comes in about $60,000 a year. Whoever's in my position's in the position of having to negotiate a new one next year.
I need a motion, please.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Before we get to unscheduled comments, did we do anything with these two information items?
Which one?
The DME one and the van one? I don't see anything on either one of my agendas. They're in the book.
They're in as information only.
The reason I put that back, we start with the police and firefighters charity soccer match. I was asked, I think the mayor's the only one I've talked to, by Kevin Petrie, who is a principal in this event, if the city would consider making a donation for the event. And when I brought it up, then I figured the mayor for sure would be on it. He asked some questions I don't have the answers to, and that was, well, who does this really help in our city? How much is the administrative overhead for this event? In other words, charity, how much do they pocket versus how much do they give out percentage-wise? And I wasn't in a position to answer, but I wanted it in here as info so you all had a chance to look at it. If I can satisfy the mayor and myself, you all have any problems making a $1,000 donation to it? $500. I don't want to get this city, and Kevin and I've discussed it, in a position where every time somebody wants a donation, they're up there soliciting you.
I can, if I could speak, the same proposal was brought to Citizens Alert the other night, and Citizens Alert did not respond with a donation. Their feelings were take care of our own first. That's kind of my theory. I noticed the date is September the 15th, which is the exact same day as the Kalen Fortier ride. And that's an 11-year event that's happened here, and I would have to turn my support towards that event as opposed to an outside event. I appreciate everything Kevin's trying to do, and DME's foundation and all the stuff that they're talking about, but there's just a lot of questions that I have on this, and I'd like a lot of answers before I make any kind of thought or any kind of donation.
I'll get you some answers. How'd that be?
I just hate, I was always under the impression that we couldn't give away tax dollars for charity. And
that's worked for us for a long time. Every once in a while we've been known to make a contribution. We've helped Warner for events in the past. We've helped Atlantic High School on some events in the past. I can't think. Oh yeah, we help. We have a reciprocal with Daytona Beach. They participate in our golf tournament. We donate to their golf tournament. I think that's about it. Can't think of any more.
I agree with the mayor's comments.
I'm going to look into it anyway for you. See if I can't get some of those answers for you. The next one that's back there, and I can't remember, it came from Frank Bruno. What he's asking is that it's time to replace a van, and it's used for nonprofits. I'm trying to put my fingers on veterans. The van that they raised money on years ago is expired. It's $38,338 that they're trying to raise. He gets to use the county council's letterhead for the petition. I need to find out what we did in 2008, whether we participated. Okay? I'll get back with you on that. Would that be all right?
Can I ask a question? The money that we're going to receive from our surplus sales,
You could earmark that to your trust, which would give you more flexibility. I don't think there's a problem with that.
I mean, the trust could make a donation to the police, fire, DME thing. And the
That's
trust
right,
could
that's
make a
right.
donation
But it
to-
doesn't have a revenue source really, except for the golf course and what Nancy gives them. So what you could do, and I thought about that some time ago, is take your auction money, put it in a trust, and that gives you a little more flexibility. Do you see any problem with that, Scott? Kevin?
Usually the money that was geared to go there was set up money that we receive from outside parties. In theory, every dollar that comes into the city as public funds has to be spent for a public purpose, and putting it into a community trust doesn't change that. But money that comes in from outside sources as a donation to the community trust never technically becomes public funds, subject to the limitation. So I don't think it really avoids the limitation, but the limitation is it has to be a public purpose. And as long as this council decides that either one or both of these entities qualifies as a public purpose for the benefit of the community, they can expend public funds for that purpose.
In other words, they can if they want to.
They can if they want to. I don't think I put it, but it doesn't give you more flexibility, in my opinion, to put it in the community trust.
Okay, so at least we would know a dollar amount then that's not in the budget, is that correct? So if we got $1,000 for that surplus stuff, then that would give us a figure that...
It gives you an idea of what you got
That
in
would
the
be
trust.
two
It helps
fair money
also
that
to
we
build
can-
that trust.
Well, I made a personal donation to this, and I don't know why we couldn't advertise it in the newsletter.
Which one?
This,
To the Volusia County?
to the
veterans?
van.
The
Yeah,
veterans?
why couldn't we put that in the newsletter and say that, there maybe help publicize it? But
Kevin was finance director. I was just going to add that typically those revenues would come back into the fund that bought the equipment. But, so whatever portion of it came back to general fund or whatever, certainly you could do whatever you chose to do with it.
Would they be allowed to earmark it to the trust for surplus property disposal?
I think what the city attorney was saying was certainly you could earmark it, but it may or may not provide any additional flexibility. You can just as easily earmark it in general fund.
I guess I was just looking for a dollar amount that we would have in our back pocket that has
Well, you've got a pretty good contingency there for things that come up, Mr. Mayor. I'm not suggesting we get into the position, we got to be careful. When I got here, it was a mess, wasn't it, Scott? They were lined up out the hallway at the old city hall waiting to pitch for a contribution, and it was the habit of this city back in '87 to donate to the community trusts. I'm not saying these are bad donations, it just, and every city was making these kind of donations to every event, Blue Cross, and there was a lot of a laundry list of money in it. It's $500 to $1,000 to each association. And then every year it kept getting bigger because they'd look at what city made what donations, what is public record they got. So we stopped it, and just puts us in a position where, normally I just turn around and it's something that we got a good nexus to, let 500 go or something. It doesn't ever get out of hand, and that's it.
but when I brought this to finance, they said, be careful, you know, you need to really, because it's going to swell again. Well, they've had the problem in Deland with it swelling.
Is there any reason we couldn't promote it in the newsletter?
We can promote it, absolutely, it's nonprofit. I do want to do some, I just stuck it in there, really, you ought to be aware of it, but I do think Bill raised some good questions. What is administrative overhead retention? How much actually goes into the service that's designated for, and how many in South Daytona are recipients of that? Yeah. Or in our county, for that matter. And I'll get some answers on it. Now, the band, that's always a different color. Let me see if I can dig out something of what happened in 2008. I think we participated at some level. I'll get it back on the agenda. Fair enough?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Item 10, unscheduled items. Vice Mayor, start with you if you don't mind.
Sure. Thanks for staff for working through all this budget process. I know it's a collective effort, everybody making their proposals and things. So thank you, Joe, for being flexible through some of those things with the retirement. We talked through the last thing. Look forward to seeing everyone. We'll be attending the Florida League of Cities here. That's our annual event, so that's always good. And I know I missed the last meeting, so let me take a moment of personal privilege and say thank you to Nancy. I know she read a letter, and then I got a copy of it, but I've been on this dais now for 8 years, and you've been next to me through this entire thing. So your service, I know we'll have opportunities before now and then, but I want to take that opportunity to say thank you for teaching me a few things along the way. So
Thank
there you go.
Councilwoman Long?
Well, thank you for those comments. And yeah, I decided to save the city money. I'm not going to go to the League of Cities, which I'll really miss it because it was so informative. I do encourage, I guess, there will be a vacancy. I have been on, it used to be called the Environmental Committee, and it's the Florida League of Cities, Utilities, Natural Resources, and Public Works now. They changed the name. But I guess I would encourage even Doug or anybody that is not on a committee to sign up for that, because it always was informative. You really felt like you were doing something as far as formulating some guidance for the people in Tallahassee. And then the other volunteer group that ever since I've been on council, I represented our city at the Board of Directors Chamber meeting once a month. And I think, well, I can only say the Port Orange representative never did show up, and sometimes I would be there and I would have to take my agenda and I'd make sure that everybody on the board knew what had happened at our meeting if a chamber member did not attend. So I would really encourage you to think about that. I think it's important that we have someone representing our city on that board. I will be able to go to the August, September, and October meetings, so I'll be glad to, represent the city then. But then starting in November, I really hope somebody would take that up. It's just good to show our business people that we're concerned. So, and I hope the rest of you have a great time at the convention. I'm going to miss it.
Now, Nancy, the League Committee, can I get information when I'm there this weekend?
Yeah, you can, yeah. Let me see how that goes. Usually they sort of appoint you, but if you can go to the meeting, put your name in, and talk to the people, that would be great.
Okay.
Brandon will help you if you won't be on that. Bob Apcart will get you on there. Somebody around to know how to do it.
Yeah.
If you have trouble, I'll pick up the phone.
Perfect. All right.
We'll be
Thank you.
glad to have you.
Yeah, it'll be very glad to have you.
All right. No additional
You're the
comments.
floor.
I'm good.
Councilman
Just to reiterate, the committees are definitely worthwhile. I've been on the Municipal Administration Committee ever since I've been on the council. It's a lot of good work. And then with that, that's it. Thank you.
This is my first conference, so I won't tell you the acronym that's been thrown at me, but anyway, I guess I'll stumble my way around down there.
You'll be fine. You'll
Find it, get me different than some of those other ones I went to. Yes. Chief, both of you, thank you for yesterday. I think we made a good showing. Mark, thank you for taking your time to be there. And Jeannie, y'all did, Patty left, but y'all did a great job with that balloon thing. That was really cool, I thought, so. And on that, I have a Jeep event to go to, so meeting adjourned.
How are you?